right, welcome back here to the lounge. I'm your host, Michael Horn. Thanks for joining us. We know you have choices in talk radio. Thanks for spending some time each day with us here in the lounge. We got a great segment coming up here. We have an author of a book called All Votes Matter. And boy, no matter whether you're on the left or the right, everybody's talking about, hey, are all the votes being counted? Does everything matter? What's going on here? Jerry Spriggs is the author of that book, and he's here to talk to us about it today. Jerry, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about you, Jerry. I understand you're a retired instructional designer. Tell us what does that mean? What do you do, or what did you do?
Well, basically that means that you design, develop, write training materials, and I work for a lot of different corporations in the Navy, the Air Force, and a lot of different things. Basically, you have a job that you work yourself out of employment because you train everybody, and then you got to go somewhere.
That's the way it is.
That's what I did.
Were you a member of the Air Force or the Navy or any part of our service?
No, I was just a contractor. I started with the Navy writing lessons for anti-submarine warfare, which means basically dropping sonobuoys to find submarines. And then I managed the instructional design unit for the Air Force's F-16 fighter pilot training program. But that's all on a contract basis. So,
all right, now you're an author now. Is this your first book? Electoral College is the title of the book. Is that your first one?
It's my first one, yeah.
All right, so
made a couple. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, finish up.
No, I was just going to say that I made a couple of false starts with it. You learn as you go, So this one I refined quite a bit, and so I went back and I analyzed the last 16 presidential elections on a state-by-state basis, and showed what happened and what could have happened if it used a system that I'm suggesting here.
Okay, so the book is called Electoral College. I'm intrigued by this, and I have not read the book yet, but you were curious about the Electoral College. It comes up in the news stories. We talk about it here on the show all the time, and this kind of grew into a hobby for you and then a passion, and that led to you writing this book, correct?
Yeah, exactly. The book's title is All Votes Matter, and back in the 90s, I was looking at the elections, and I was looking at those election maps like so many people do, and you see red and blue states. So by that time, I had moved to different locations. I realized, there are a lot of folks that are not being represented by this Electoral College results.
Right.
And so I started digging into it, like you say, like a hobby. And then the more I got into it, it became kind of a passion. And then when I retired in 2012, I had already come up with this idea, and so that's when I started writing the book and putting it together. So
Jerry Spriggs is our guest. The book is called, and I apologize, All Votes Matter. It is about the Electoral College, and his passion for that led to the book, but the title is All Votes Matter. Jerry Spriggs, S-P-R-I-G-G-S, is the author. So talk to me. Tell us how your book makes studies of the Electoral College clearer, because I think we're all confused about the Electoral College, and All Votes Matter should clear that up. I think. Tell us how.
Yeah, it's kind of a study and where it came from, what its history, what the principles are, and it shows what a proportional voting system looks like, or what was intended by the constitutional framers. It shows some of the problems we have. The idea of the Electoral College is actually very ingenious. A lot of people say, well, it's antiquated and it's passé and we should get rid of it, which would be a big mistake. The problem is how the states manage it. We use since it's a proportional system, and then when the state gets their allocation of electoral votes, all of a sudden we switch horses in the midstream and we use a winner-takes-all kind of aspect. And so if you're not amongst the winning party in your vote is not represented in the Electoral College. Over the past 16 elections, I show that about 48% of the ballots cast are not represented in the Electoral College. For example, in this last election, 2020, we set aside, did not represent over 69 million ballots cast. So that's an egregious problem we have, and so people feel like, well, my vote doesn't count, and a lot of times they're correct.
Well, so So from what I understand, and stop me if I'm wrong here today, the Electoral College was set up because if you just had it count by straight votes, which is the simple thing that everybody says, just count it, whoever gets the most votes wins, you'd have the most populous states, California, New York, they have the most population, they'd win every time. Well, whoever was popular in those states, and then you get into some smaller states, Rhode Island or whatever, and somebody casts a vote, and it wouldn't really matter because it's only like a minuscule amount. So the framers of the Constitution put the Electoral College together to go ahead and make certain areas count, and then so many states are weighted by population that so many electoral votes go from Rhode Island, so many from New York, so many from California go into it. Am I correct in that assessment? That's the way it's supposed to work?
You're absolutely correct, and you're one amongst the very few that really understand that.
But your book looked at this. You're not tossing that out. You're trying to make it better. So let's take the last election. What do you mean in the 2020 it wasn't a true representation? What has changed where we've got to make some changes here in it?
Well, if we can take the winner-take-all aspect and set it aside, don't use it, and instead proportion the electoral votes within a state, it would make a huge difference. For example, California has 55 electoral votes, right?
Right.
And if we'd have done the equal voice voting in California last year, Biden would have come out with 36 electoral votes, and Trump would have got 19. Okay, now some people might not like that if you're a Democrat, that sort of thing. But let's go down to Texas, and Texas has 38 electoral votes. Biden would have got 18, and Trump would have got 20. You start seeing the magic here that all of a sudden we don't have a red and blue state, we have purple states. We don't have swing states. We have people that really are their votes matter. That's why I titled the book.
And how would you? We've only got about 30 seconds here. How would you change that? I mean, we got to get the book here. How would you change that?
Well, each state can do what they want.
Got it.
On that
so
level.
Each change.
So it'd be on a state by state. Yeah. No constitutional amendment would be needed.
There you go. All right, we got to read this book, and we got to get you back on the show. There's many questions I have for you. Where do we get this book? The author is Jerry Spriggs, Spriggs. The book is called All Votes Matter. Where do we get it?
You can go out to Amazon. You can go out to Barnes & Noble. And then I got to put a plug in for Portland, Oregon, because that's where I live, is Powell's Bookstore.
All right, so get it at bookstores, get it at Amazon.com. All Votes Matter from Jerry Spriggs, Spriggs. All Votes Matter. Thank you, Jerry.